Try not to seem so happy, Lee. So I have the privilege of introducing my friend Myeisha Hutchinson today, and I'm going to do it quickly so you can hear from her. I want to make sure you realize you were talking to the 2001 Woodlawn High School valedictorian. That's right there. And really, it's all downhill from there. She started her career at UAB. She went on to serve on Congresswoman Sewell's staff, and she is only down to 3 jobs right now because that's a light load for her. She is working as the chief of staff to Darrell O'Quinn, city councilman here in Birmingham. She is an associate at the Chalker Group, which is Barbara Burton's organization, and she is the founder of MDH Strategies. Myeisha is going to talk to us today about her story and around diversity and inclusiveness. I will just tell you, I've been in the room with Myeisha so many times over the last years. She is an incredibly compelling speaker. She is a compelling thinker. We are incredibly lucky that she lives and cares and bleeds for Birmingham and has done so for her entire career. And so I am privileged to introduce my friend Myeisha Hutchinson. Please come to the stage and enlighten us.
I like to tell people I was valedictorian. That's a heavy lift because you might think, oh, she's valedictorian? Thank you for having me today. I want to start by giving a quick shout out. I see quite a few of the BCE, Best Class Ever of Leadership Birmingham, 2018. Stand up, guys. Give yourself a round of applause. It's great to have familiar faces here today. I know this is somewhat of a heavy topic, right? But I want to start out with a little bit of a story, kind of like how I got started, like what compelled her to help create this world of justice. I was about in the 10th grade, sophomore year, at some nerd event, just starting as an SGA officer, and it was a regional event. All SGAs from all over the county, every nerd in the city. Right? And there was a young lady who comes up to me and is, we're introducing ourselves. I'm Myeisha, I'm from Woodlawn High School. I serve as, this on the SGA. And she almost growled, turned up her nose, and said, well, you don't look and talk like you're from Woodlawn, and kind of walked off. End of conversation. So I go home and I kind of talk to my mom about, my day, and I go, well, someone just thought the least of me today. And I know I'm better than that, but, aren't we sometimes quick to stereotype people based on their zip code, their area code, where they're from? And quite honestly, it's not right. So today I want you to lean into, and okay, I have control to click here. I was like, do I have control or not? Okay. I want you to keep these ideas in mind. I want you to lean into being a little bit uncomfortable and vulnerable, but then the ability to move today and kind of, not have an end goal, because this is a life journey. How we work towards creating an inclusive world, a world of belonging, a world of equity, and a world where it is truly just, is like everyone has to be involved, right? So we'll go over 3 kind of areas, right? Some basic framework. We'll talk a little bit about definitions, what they mean, how you capture data, because everything is negotiable, right? You can capture anything, right? You're already doing it. And becoming a lifelong practitioner, like how can you really be a co-conspirator in this journey of justice? So I want to start here by saying diversity is in the room. Everyone has a different story of how they got to Kiwanis today. Everyone has a different story of how they got to Alabama. Everyone has a different story of their family, or even maybe how they made it to the experiment of the United States. We all have a different story. So moving past diversity, because it's here, right? I don't care if it's a room full of women who look like me with curly hair, a fro, and beautiful caramel skin. We all have a different story. So let's move right into this whole conversation about equity, inclusion, and belonging, right? Equity is recognizing that, we all have a different starting spot, right? Everyone started different, and everyone gets to a place. And how do we make accommodations and adjustments where everyone can get to a place of where it's equitable? Like, I feel included. I am a member of this. It's safe for me to be who I am. It's safe for me to reveal if you're in a same-sex marriage. It's safe for me to say that I am Muslim. It's safe for me because I feel like I belong and I'm respected. And so going more into this term equity, literally, this is on Google, right? This is what's on Google. You can literally Google this. The term equity refers to fairness and justice, and it's distinguished from equality because whereas equality provides that we're all the same, but equity says that we all have a different starting point, right? And how do we get to that end goal? Moreover, this is one of my favorite pictures from the internet. Again, everything we're going to show today, you can literally go on the internet and look up. When we think about equality, right, this is a soccer game. There's a wooden fence, and so there was an accommodation made for people to see over the fence. Who's been to a football game, basketball game, any type of large event? Raise your hand. Everyone, right? I can tell you the women in the room always wonder, why don't they have more restrooms for us? We're waiting out line, right? We're waiting outside. That's what equality looks like. Everyone has a restroom. And then we go into this equity, right? You see where the box was removed from one person, and one person was given one box, and then another person was given two boxes. So that's good. But really what we're looking for is this idea of justice. We're eliminating that barrier. You see where the wooden fence was removed? Why is there a wooden fence at a soccer game? We have to ask ourselves, these systems that have been in place hundreds of years, why is it that way? Why can't we just take it away? Easier said than done, right? And then when we look at this kind of circle of what DEIB looks like, it's really a circle process. It's not going to be this way. It's not going to be a start, and it's not going to be an end. It's literally a lifelong journey. So some things that you have to think about, being accountable, that DEI is embedded throughout your organization. And in fact, it has to be embedded within your life. So what happens when we don't do it, right? We have all these isms: sexism, ableism, ageism, colorism, classism, racism, ism. We could have pages of ism, right? The society is laced with isms, right? But this is the fallout when we don't create an equitable and inclusive environment. Other fallout is like this bias, right? Clearly the young lady who stereotyped me, this was a very conscious bias. Wasn't unconscious. And at the age of 15, there's already an opinion about a certain person who lives in a certain neighborhood, right? So you're thinking, where does this start? It starts somewhere, right? And then they kind of turn into these unconscious bias. I'm hanging with women who look like me. I'm hanging with people with the same social economic background. There's really no even diversity within the little groups that we have, right? And the bias, we're clinging for those people who we have so much in common with, because sometimes it's uncomfortable to be around and talk to people who we don't have anything in common with. And then there's the microaggressive things that happen, right? One of my favorite YouTube videos on microaggression is it compares it to like a mosquito bite. You're outside and this mosquito is just like at you, and eventually you're gonna slap and kill it, right? Literally. So that's the lead up, right? When people at jobs, within organizations, something's just been bubbling up on the inside, right? And then all of a sudden they blow up and, geez, she's an angry black woman. Geez, she's an overly emotional woman. Gosh, he's an angry white man. Things just bubble up when we don't handle them, right? And then there's this survival mode that people go into. People become a token. I'm the black person on the board. I'm the woman in the C-suite. Or I'm the LGBTQ person that represents this organization. I plan all the Pride Month events. I plan all the Black History events. I plan this, I do that. And like it's just the burden is on you and you become a token. And whereas the voice of a token is lost, right? The authentic person, they're not there just to, really give voice. They're there to make a quota. Then there's this whole PTSD, right? Another story real quick. A couple of years ago, I was going to Huntsville. It's a poppin' city. I love Birmingham, but I have friends in Huntsville. And the first thing my mom says, don't stop. Don't stop in Coleman. Don't stop in that place. And I thought, well, okay, well, hopefully I won't run out of gas or something won't happen in my car. And it was just something on her heart to say, there's so many rumors. There's just things that have happened to people of color in Coleman. Don't stop there. This is 3 years ago. And I'm thinking, things have changed, mother. But there's that PTSD that we live with, right? It's this constant conversation. And even the conversation my mother had to have with me as a young child, look, we're going to go in the store. You're not going to touch anything. You're not going to do anything because they're going to think you're stealing. And I'm thinking, not me. I'm not going to steal anything. They're going to judge you because of the color of your skin. It's those conversations. It's the conversations that other black parents have to have with their little black boy to say, this is how you interact with the police. This is how you're going to make it home to me. So survival is real. And then there's code switching, right? There's this one way you're in a boardroom, and women can attest to that, right? We have to be strong. We can't show emotion because no one wants to see you as the overly emotional female, right? We have to code switch to survive. And then there's lots of fallout. There's lots of fallout when people are in this imposter syndrome mode, right? You decrease confidence. You're not getting a genuine experience from somebody. It just creates this false narrative, and the list could just go on and on and on and on. Okay, so we got some basic framework. Data collection. Who's filled out an application for a job in the room? Everybody, right? So you're already doing this stuff, right? But how do you put this together to really build the case? So there are 3 social resources at most organizations. There's the employees, there's the customers, and then there's your reputation, right? What are people saying about it? What are people saying on Google? What is their experience of you? And then when we look at these 5 key metrics to how we're really judging how we're doing with diversity, right? A really good one is the 3 that we really look at is this rate of hire. Are we really hiring diverse candidates from different religious backgrounds, different sexual orientation backgrounds, different genders, different races? And then what is their rate of promotion and advancement? Are they staying on the team? Are we able to retain this top talent? I know this is a conversation because we're having what they're calling the Great Resignation, right? This quiet quitting that everyone's talking about. Wonder why? And then we're looking at salary and compensation, right? What's happening? Are women at this company making less than men? And people of color, are they making less than other people? What is happening? All this stuff is trackable to build your business case. And then there's these different kind of stages, organizations are kind of awake, This is from an organization, I absolutely love this graph, one of my favorite graphs to show. Are organizations awake, they're focused on representation, and then they're woke, they're evolving their culture, they're really creating a sense of belonging. But then there's some work that some organizations are doing. Organizations are coming out saying, we're going to stand against this policy, taking national issues on at a very local level. And that's what you want to be doing to create a place of belonging, right? And then there's this thought of people analytics, right? There are these different spaces in which you're already capturing information: workforce planning, talent sourcing, talent acquisition, employee wellness. Like, we're putting this together to kind of create this case, right? We're tracking it. And then there's just these 5 pillars: recruitment, retention, advancement, representation, and pay. You can really see just how diverse and equitable your organization is by looking at those areas. Are we really paying people of color the same as the people who maybe started this company, right? Are we really paying women the same as men? Are we really paying those in the LGBTQ community? Are they really making the same, right? These are trackable things. And then there's kind of like the real raw data. So this comes from the Kellogg Foundation, and they've started doing a report in 2013. What if we eliminated racial inequities by 2050? What would that mean? These are just from page 3 of the 44-page report, right? Page 3. If we just eliminated racial inequities, how we could increase consumer spending, right? $191 billion on food. I don't know who works in the food industry, but you're probably missing out on some money, right? Lots of real estate agents in here, home builders, $500 billion in consumer spending. These are the projected increases if we eliminated racial inequities. And that's just race. We didn't even get into the gritty of gender. We didn't get into the gritty of sexual orientation and even ability and age, because all that is within the premise framework of DEI. A lot of people just want to talk about race, but there are other pillars in creating an inclusive environment. And then there's just the bottom line. Companies are making more money. More gender diversity, 25% more. More ethnic diversity, 36% more. And your bottom line, what you're making. The numbers don't lie. And then our last portion is, how do you become a co-conspirator? This is a very personal journey. Yes, you can make changes within your organization, where you work, where you serve, your community, but the real change is on the inside, and it's a lifelong journey. So I like to start here when we think about allyship. First one, appetite. This is your own self-assessment, right? These 7 areas. Do you have the emotional stamina to say enough is enough? I've seen enough discrimination, and I'm a person of privilege, and I can get in front of people and I can make changes, because it can be emotionally taxing. And it does require a high level of emotional intelligence. Then you have to ask. You have to do a lot of reading. And then there's the acceptance, right? No more data collection. It's real. It exists. No more back and forth this is real. We have accepted the fact that this is happening in our society, and we're going to move towards making it a more just society, right? And apologize. Okay, this is from London, as you can see. Apologize. It's spelled different from our American spelling. But we're not moving forward. And I'll go into that on the next slide. Like, not necessarily looking for an apology. I'm so sorry that you've been treated wrong. I don't need an apology from anybody, right? I need you to move into action. And don't make assumptions, right? Don't assume that someone is experiencing something or someone is some way. And, we can make a lot of assumptions about people. Find out for yourself. And then there's the action portion, right? And a pillar of being an ally is this moving towards compassion, right? We have this sympathy, we have these thoughts about stuff. Then we have this empathy. There's some thoughts, then there's some feelings. But compassion moves us to action often. That's why you're in this room. You were moved to be a part of Kiwanis. You wanted to act on making the community a better place, right? And then there's like these different stages of action. Then there's the individual action where you're going to educate yourself, you're going to read, and then you're going to make it interpersonal. You're going to start talking to people. You're going to start supporting people outside of your normal sphere. And then you're going to move on to some heavy stuff, structural. You're going to say, this policy, in fact, is not inclusive. Giving a woman 6 weeks off after having a child is not enough time, right? We're going to expand that. And that's just one radical thought, right? Lots of things we can do at a structural level within your organization. And I don't want you to make this so big where I've got to go out and I've got to do this today. Work within the structures that you're already a part of. That's what matters most. And then getting in proximity. No one talks about proximity better than Brian Stevenson, right? Nobody on this earth talks about proximity because it's the only way we're going to move, right? You've got to get in proximity with people who are suffering, right? You've got to get boots on the ground to understand the issues. And then true allies understand intersectionality, right? Intersectionality is like this thought that, I'll just use myself, for example. I'm Black, I'm a woman. And I was telling JW before I got up here, I actually have a little bit of a disability, right? I have sleep apnea. So when I get on a plane, I can take 3 bags for my medical device, my purse, my book bag, or whatever else I'm calling, because you know I'm a woman, I've got all kind of stuff. But they were counting my bags. And you know, you never notice it until, you know, oh, she's okay, she's a medical device. And someone actually, you know, said that out loud. Now, what if I really wanted to, like, keep that personal, right? And, you know, the person maybe could have came up to me and say, hey, is that a medical device? But I really don't care because I sleep well at night. So I'm proud to haul my 3 bags on an airplane, right? But it's understanding that my collective experience, they're not separate, right? And yes, I'm a hardcore feminist. Yes, I'm a hardcore believer in, you know, African-American studies and Black people and Black culture. But they all come together and they make me the person that I am. And even my medical experience, because if I hear anybody snoring, I'll say, have you had a sleep study? Right? They all craft who I am, and they're not separate. And then there's this accountability, right, as an ally. You know, you want to consider what you're doing or what someone has said, how it can be harmful. And it's to be accountable. It's to be accountable, to say, I did this, but I want to move beyond this, right? It's to rethink these assumptions about people, right? It's to empathize, right? And then to support. Easier said than done, right? That's true allyship. Allyship is not the oppression Olympics. I am not going to go back and forth with a woman and say, my experience as a Black person is so much worse than you being a woman. Because I understand intersectionality, because I'm also a woman, right? I'm not going to go back and forth. We're not going to war on who is having it worse. We're all oppressed, right? If you're in a marginalized group, it is what it is. And then kind of avoid this savior complex, right? You don't have all the answers because you lose focus on the group that you're trying to help, that you're trying to use your privilege for. And that's what allies do. They realize their privilege, but they realize they are also not a savior. Again, within the context of the organizations that you're already a part of, you can affect change. And lastly, it's this circle model. You're not going from a beginning to an end. You're remodeling your life. You're redesigning yourself to think, I'm going to call stuff out. I'm going to create environments where people feel like they belong. I'm going to be a champion for justice. And the case for humanity is beyond the business case. People deserve dignity, no matter who they are, what ability level they have, what neighborhood they from. People deserve dignity. So, that's really all I have today.